All right, happy hips today. Very exciting. So yes, a ball, a band. Hello, a few more people. A band, if you've got one, a ball or a pillow or cushion or something to squeeze if you can. And that should be all we're needing for today. If you don't have either of those things, that's fine. We will make do. So where to start? Hip joint. All right, your hip joint is ball and socket joint. The socket or the acetabulum is actually part of your pelvis. All right, so when we talk the pelvis, it's the big ball here at the bottom of your spine. The pelvis is attached to the spine. The hips are attached to the pelvis. But we need to be able to move the hip joint without moving the spine and the pelvis. All right, so often we're going to work hip mobility while we stabilize the pelvis, because every time you move your leg, your pelvis and your low back moves. That's where you're going to get into trouble. So for a nice healthy spine, pelvis, hips, knees, feet, basically everything from here down, you need to be able to stabilize one and move another part. Okay, so when people are talking of hip joint pain, often hip proper joint pain will be deep in the crease of the hip here. When people come to me and say, oh, I need a hip replacement, all the pain is here, I go, oh no, you're in luck. That's just a pain in the bum, which is a pain in the bum, but often something like one of these will become your best friend. So it can be, this is I think a $3 one from Kmart, which is really easy. You can find dog toys, you can find tennis balls. Hello everyone, just joining us. We're just talking about pains in the bum. So if you're getting pain somewhere that's not deep in the crease of the hip joint and somewhere else in the bottom area, one of these will become your best friend. So you just lay on it, you find a spot where it's sore and you allow it to be your massage tool. All right, if you have a family member that's happy to get their thumb into there, that's great as well. But balls with a little bit of give into them. My husband's really into a cricket ball, but I think that's just a bit too much, really. Something with a little bit of squishiness is ideal. All right. So when we're talking hips, we want them to be stable, and yet we want them to have mobility. Some people just have very stiff hip joints that aren't going to move anywhere, and other people have hypermobile hips, which causes trouble. It can wear onto the labrum, and you can also find that the femur, so the ball part, doesn't always sit nicely in the socket. It will start to ride forwards and cause a lot of pinching in the hip flexors in the front of the hip. So everything we do today is going to be about bringing back the stabilizers. And if you have any issues from here down, or you just want to work and make it stronger and better, this is going to help spine, back, pelvis, knees, feet, etc., etc. So starting on your back, I'm just going to perch up a bit so you can see me. We're just going to go through an exercise called hip release. So if you just straighten your left leg down, your right knee is going to tip out towards the side. You're going to straighten the leg. You're then going to rotate the leg inwards, so internal rotation of the leg, and then pull the heel back up. So your heel's moving in a straight line from your sit bone, which is this little bony bit that you sit on. So external rotation, straighten the leg. Internal rotation, pull it in. External rotation, straighten. Internal rotation, pull it in. And we start to speed it up. So you're moving the hip through this range of motion, and yet the pelvis, this bit here, pelvis and the low back are staying completely stable. So if every time you tip your knee out, your pelvis goes wonk, all right, not what we're looking for. We have a tiny bit of core on, just enough to stabilize the pelvis. Now reverse it. So internal rotation, straighten, external rotation, pull it in. So in and straighten. So we're starting out with more kind of remedial type exercises at the start here, or more for your learning about the muscles around the hip. And as we go on, the exercises are going to get a bit harder and trickier. So if you do have hip issues, please note that this isn't a diagnostic class, all right? Take it easy and work to your own abilities. Muscle burn is fine, but if you're getting joint pain, please take it easy. So right leg's going to straighten out on the floor, same thing with the left side. So left leg tips out to the side, straighten, roll in, pull it in. Left out, straighten, roll in, pull it in. So you can start to speed that up as long as you can stabilize your pelvis here as that leg moves. If you find it easier, you can put something slidey under your foot, like a ball or a nice slidey cloth if you're working on hard work. You guys are probably on Pilates mats, which makes sense. Good, reach, bend, and one more internal rotation, straighten, external rotation, pull it in. All right, so external rotation of the hip, internal rotation of the hip, yep. All right, also another thing to note about your hip flexors, which are these guys in the front of the hip. Most of us spend a lot of the day sitting, which means our hip flexors are in a shortened position. So if you're like this, in this position for 10 hours a day, the muscles at the front of the hip are going to be shorter, as in tighter, and the muscles at the back are going to be weaker, which is why most people that I see, I'm going to stereotype, have really tight dominant hip flexors and are really weak towards the back, which is why I often do exercises and cues that promote the back of the bottom working. So the other thing we see is that the brain mixes all the hip muscles together. So you're going to get whatever you can, pillow, cushion, ball between your knees. You're going to take your fingertips and dig them down into the hip flexors. So think the crease at the front of the hip. If you pull your knees in, you're just looking for the crease. Now you're going to squeeze your knees together, and I want you to feel no muscles working underneath your fingers. So these are your hip flexors. These are your adductors, inner thighs. I want your inner thighs to contract without these muscles here poking into your hands. So really important exercise, especially for my runners or people trying to run. Sorry, that was not meant to be rude. I've been trying to run. That's a bit of a joke. Oh dear. So you're squeezing and you're trying to get inner thighs without your hip flexors getting involved. Some people are so dominant, I can't give them any leg exercise without their hip flexors getting involved. So this is a brain exercise here for you. How much inner thigh can you squeeze with nothing happening underneath your fingers? So you see me go a couple more reps there. So squeeze onto that ball. Good. This will also be great for pelvic floor. Starts to activate some low abs, which is cool. Excellent. So now you're just holding the ball or the cushion, whatever you've got between your knees, and you're rolling up into your bridge position. Good. At the top, lower your bum down, squeeze back up, and squeeze the knees. Good. Roll down again, all the way back to the bottom. Good. So mobilizing the spine here. As we come up, we're extending or opening the hips. So if you do have tight hip flexors, you'll get a stretch here. Lower the bum down. Squeeze up 3 times. Squeeze the knees at the same time. So squeeze 3, squeeze 2, squeeze 1, and then roll it back down. Good. Go again, rolling it up. So use your tummy, squeeze your glutes, squeeze the knees together, pelvis halfway down. Squeeze up for 3, 2, 1, roll it back down here. Good. Last time like this, roll it back up. Lower the bum halfway down. Squeeze glutes, come back up for 3, 2, 1. Roll all the way back down to the floor. And relax your pelvis. Good, nice. Take the ball out. This time a straight shoulder bridge coming up into hip extension. So feet press down onto the floor, squeeze glutes, lift pelvis up into that bridge position so the front of the hips are open. I want you to practice your weight shift. So you're going to weight shift 80% of your weight onto your right leg. All right? Nothing should change visually here through your pelvis. Good. Come back to center. Weight shift onto your left leg. Good. Come back to center. This time as you weight shift onto your right leg, if you feel strong and stable, your left leg floats up to tabletop. You don't have to float that leg. It's optional. Exhale, weight shift. Other leg can float if you choose. So breathe out, shift the weight, float the opposite leg. So again, really important for pelvic floor, deep hip stabilizers, opening through the front of the hip. We're teaching your body how to weight shift, which is important for walking, while stabilizing through the pelvis. So if you notice you put your weight onto one side and your pelvis goes wonk, down like this, it means you need some more work on that side. This time, keep a leg up at tabletop, lower your bum halfway down and pulse up for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lower the foot, flip the other leg up. Watch your ribs are down here. Lower and pulse up for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lower your foot and roll down through your spine. No, you cannot come in. Hug one knee into your chest. You're going to cross the leg over the body. One hand on the knee, one hand on the ankle. Pull it across the body and stretch out the bottom. All right. So a big, beautiful bum stretch. Hang on 1 second while I deal with the child. Go see your brother, please. Oh dear. Pretty good we made it through this many classes without interruptions yet, really. Excellent. So relax that leg down, hug the other knee into your chest. One hand on your knee, one hand on your ankle, and pull it across the body into a glute stretch. Excellent. So grab your band, towel, scarf, whatever you've got. Bring that leg up into a tabletop position with the band wrapped around the foot. Your elbows are going to be pinned onto the floor, so they're not going to move. And you're going to have a lot of tension on the band. All right, so from here, you're going to tap your toe down, like how we do toe taps normally, working on the abs, and then let the band bring your leg back up to tabletop. All right, so you tap the toe down towards the floor, and then almost think of resisting the weight of the band as it brings you back into tabletop. So you're thinking, why am I doing this? This is very easy. What this is a reset exercise for your brain if you tend to use all hip flexors on this exercise. So what we're trying to teach your body to do is to engage the back of the hip to press down and to relax the hip flexor. So you get a nice deep crease in the front of the hip as you bring it back in. If it helps, get your thumb into that hip flexor and make sure as that knee comes up, you're just releasing into a nice deep crease. Good, one more on this side, so tap it down, and then a nice deep crease into the front of the hip. While you're here, just stretch it up into a hamstring stretch. Good, and then change sides. So other leg into tabletop. It's almost like a warm-up exercise just to try to avoid the hip flexor and get more of the back of the hip. So exhale as you tap away. Inhale, float it back up. So you're resisting the pull of the band as it comes in. So tap away, really good for those of you who get that thunking or clicking when you're doing your toe taps. This should help. You shouldn't be getting a thunk on this with the band supporting you. All right, so as we go into real toe taps, you have to try to keep this feeling almost like you've got support from the back of the hip joint as you tap down, and that you can soften and crease the front of the hip as you come up. All right, keep that cue in mind. One more here, and then stretch up into a hammy stretch. Good. Take the band off the foot. Warming up those low abs, just a couple pelvic tilts. So exhale, you're going to tilt the pelvis to flatten the back down towards the floor, and inhale, release to neutral. Exhale, pelvic floor lifts as you tilt the pelvis and release to neutral. Good. So this here, we're moving the pelvis, not the hip joints. Good. And this time you're going to hold your pelvic tilt. So exhale, pelvic tilt, hold, and almost imagine there's little butterfly clips clipping ribs and hips together. If you tend to get neck tension on your low ab work, pop your head up higher, okay? Hold that pelvic tilt, float one leg up to tabletop. Float the other leg up to join it. If you don't want to do two legs, you could do one at a time. That's fine. Now tap down. Use the back of the hip to tap away. Fold the hip as you come up. Back of the hip taps down. Fold the hip. Bring it back up. Exhale here. So don't go so far. If you do get flunks or flicks, don't go that far. So exhale. Make it work through the abs. Make it work through the back of the hip. And then fold it up. Good. 4 more. Exhale it down. See if you can start to challenge your leg a little bit farther away from your bum. For 3. Fold at the hip, bring it up. Good, go for 2. Float it up. Good, last 1. Bring it up, hands behind the head curling up, and you're gonna move the legs faster. So you're gonna take it for inhale, inhale, exhale, exhale. Breathe in, and breathe in, and so hips moving, work through the back of the hips and the core, not the hip flexors. Last set. Bend the knees in, curl up higher, relax everything down, and roll onto your side. All right. Knees bent for me. Knees together, toes together, pelvis is gonna stay stable. It's easiest if you lie down onto your side. I'm just gonna prop up here so I can talk easier. So with toes together, we're doing external rotation of the hip. So we're getting all those deep lateral rotators and a little bit of glute here. So you're rotating the knee up as high as it goes without the pelvis moving, and then releasing it back down slow. So I want you to come up for 2, and then internal rotation for 4, and get the feeling of almost resisting yourself, bringing it back down. So up, quick, slow release it down. So it's really going to make those external rotators work if you come slowly down. Now, if this is quite easy and you're quite strong through the glutes already, exact same thing with the band tied around your knees. So keep going if you're not tying the band around and you're resisting the resistance. Resist the resistance on the way back down. So slow against the resistance of the band to come down. This time come up, release it down just a centimeter and pulse it back up for 3, 2, 1. Resist against the band as you come back down. Beautiful. Pelvis is really stable, but you're spiraling the hip joint. Spiral right out of the hip joint with that knee up, centimeter down, pulse back up. 3, 2, 1, and slowly release it down. Good, last time here. So bring it up, rotate through the back of the hip joint. A centimeter down, pulse back up for 3, 2, 1, and come all the way back down, knees together. Good, slide the band off, straighten out the legs. Don't worry, your glutes aren't done yet. So now rather than external rotation, we're going into hip abduction, which is all glute medius and glute minimus, all right? For all the nerds in class, bend your knee, bottom knee, top leg straight, and you're lifting the leg up. Now, if your body wants to use your hip flexors that are dominant, you'll find the leg starts to come forwards in space. That's because it's trying to fold here so you can use all these dominant muscles. We want glutes to be working, so you need to think of rolling forwards onto your belly and pulling your leg back behind you. Not so much your back arches, all right, but enough that you're going to get glute med. So all my runners, for example, come in with really strong dominant hip flexors and very little glute med stability. All right, and glute med is so important for the health of your knees, ankles, feet, spine, as well as the hips. So really important to be able to get glute med. So if you want to know if it's the right muscle, your hip flexors are kind of in front of the seam of your pants, and the glute med is behind the seam of the pants. So it's not big glute max in the back, it's just along the side. It starts at that big sticky hip bone and fans up onto the pelvis. So hold it up at hip height. We'll make sure you're getting the right muscle here in a second. You're going to circle back for 8. Make circles backwards. And as you make these circles, you should really start to find the muscle. If you start to find, it's coming into hip flexor and down the quad. Roll forwards more, leg backwards more. Good. Circle the other direction. And smile. Such an important muscle. You came to glutes class. You'll remember glutes solve everything. Hold and pulse up for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax it down. Give it a pat. Oh, happy hip on that side. We get to do it all again on the other side. If you want to use your band, please do so. So wrap the band around the knees in your nice tied position. Or maybe you have one of those fancy loopy ones. That's great. So you're coming up, slowly down. Good. Pelvis nice and stable. Rotate up. And slow on the way down. Beautiful. So really stack your pelvis. It'll feel like you can't go as high, but if you're back here, yes, you can go high, but you're not in as stable of a position. So hips are stacked. You're using the back of the hip. Poke it. That's the other tip for bum muscles. Anybody who's been a client of mine will know that I'm quite happy to get my thumb right on in there and it will help you find it. All right. I am not there to poke you, so you need to poke yourself. Then get your thumb right into the back of that hip. You'll find the spot, don't worry. Good, and release it slow. This time pulsing, so spiral it up. Pulse 3 times here for 3, 2, 1, and slowly down. Good, and again, spiral it up. Release, pulse up for 3, 2, 1, slowly down. Last set like this, spiral it up. Release, pulse up for 3, 2, 1, slowly down. Straighten out the leg. If in doubt, roll forwards more, take the leg backwards more. Nice and open through the front of the hip. Lengthen the leg, lift up. Almost imagine that someone's pulling the leg away from you, which is going to create more space in that hip joint. So it gets the stabilizers really active, thinking of tractioning that leg. Creating lots of space in the hip joint, which is obviously important. Good, reach it up. So again, should be into that glute med in the side of the hip here. If you are weak on one side, I've had people that actually feel like an ice cream scoop's been taken out in the glute med muscle. And they have a big, strong hip flexor muscle here. So it's quite interesting. Muscles that tend to disappear when people are in pain. Hold it there, circle for 8. Good for 5. Keep that pelvis stable for 3. Should be getting nice and warm now. Other way for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold there and pulse up for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax it down. Give it a nice big pat. Excellent. All right, hip extension and glute max. Now, quick quad stretch here, because if your quads and hip flexors are really tight, it's going to be hard to get any hip extension. So hold that ankle, shin, foot, lasso with a band if you need to. Have a quick quad stretch. Well, I just talked to you about hip extension is the movement this direction. Now, really important for my low back people and for hip people that you can extend your hips so you can lift the leg off the ground without dipping into the low back. For proper walking gait, you actually need 15 degrees of hip extension. So keeping your pubic bone on the ground. Sorry, do your other leg first before I make you do the glute stuff. So stretching up these quads first can just make sure you've got more range of movement. If you don't have 15 degrees of hip extension, it's not the end of the world. You can absolutely work on it. It just will show you where you need to target your exercise a bit more. All right, so pubic bone on the ground. You're going to lift the leg straight up off the ground and lower it down. Try to keep your head on your hands here. Lift the opposite leg straight up off the ground and lower it down. What you want to feel is that those hip bones in the front of your pelvis stay off the ground and the pubic bone stays down. So where my hands are sliding right under those hip bones, I'm trying to keep them off the ground as the legs lift. So you should get glute max. And this is where we get into problems if your hip flexors are really tight. So keep alternating legs. If your hip flexors are really tight, you're not going to have the range of motion to do hip extension. You're not going to have the range of motion needed to walk. So you will find a new way to walk. Bodies adapt, but not always the best case scenario. Beautiful. This time, hover both legs just off the ground. Keep that pubic bone down and you're going to flutter. So flutter kicking here for 10. It's not a real flutter kick. Your knees are actually straight on this flutter kick for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax the feet down. Good. Push your bum back onto your heels. Quick stretch out. Excellent. Do I have time for... okay, quick on all fours. So hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips. Practicing hip dissociation for your squat. So for a squat prep, what you need to be able to do is back your bum up towards the heels without your bum tucking under. So if I had a dinner plate resting on my back, a dinner plate, all right, I wouldn't spill it. All right, I can stay really flat as the bum comes back towards my heels and back up again. So what people tend to do if they're tight in the back of the hips and the glutes is they tuck under as they come back, they round. Can you see the difference there? So for healthy bum and pelvic floor, you want to lengthen through the glutes, stick your bum out basically, and come back up. But this is exactly what we need to do in our squats. So it's a squat prep. Really nice for the hip joints because you're getting that stretch and opening through the back of the hip and that nice deep crease through the front of the hip. A full squat, like you'll see people do in, what do you say? As in a full squat is actually a fundamental human movement that most of us can't do anymore. So just something to take note of. That nice deep creasing through your hips is actually quite important. All right, come down onto your forearms. You're going to take one leg up behind you with the toe tapped onto the ground, and you're going to lift and lower that leg. As much range of motion as you can get without moving the low back. All right, so low back stays really still and stable, lifting and lowering that back leg. Shoulders just away from your ears here. Hold it up there, bend the knee, and pop for 8. 3 more, 2, 1. Bring the knee down to the floor. Other side. So other leg comes back behind you. Lift and lower it, keeping it completely straight. As much range of motion as you can get without the spine and low back moving. The spine and low back stay stable. Lift and lower that back leg. Core just gently wrapping to hold the spine stable. Bend that back knee and pulse the heel up here. For 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Bend the knee in. And you're going to come up to standing for me, please. All right. Like I said about the squat, if you can find something to hold on to here, that would be fantastic. So I've got my little doorway. Door handles work quite well if you trust your doors. Keep the camera like that. If you don't have anything, that's fine. The best thing about holding on for hip joints, if you're new to squatting, is that you can try to keep your shins vertical. Less load goes on the knee joint and more load into the glutes. Often people will just go way forward with the knees and get heaps of quads but no bum muscles. Holding on allows you to get a lot more of that glute component. When you come up, you still make the legs do the work. You're not pulling up with the arms, you're just allowing the arms to bring your bum backwards more. So really nice as a beginner squat or a squat where you're concentrating on getting more glutes active. What you want to find in the front of the hip, especially for my hip flexory people, is that you're creasing. So feel with one hand, get that really deep crease, especially if you've got a dodgy hip. If it's hard on your knees, you can either squeeze something between your knees, or you can have something tied around the outside of your knees for that extra glute component. It's up to you and just depends on what area you need to work more, whether it's inside the thighs or outside. Hold it down the bottom and pulse down for 8, 7, 6, 5, good, for 4, 3, 2, 1, come all the way back up. Shake it off. So the other thing we need to see with your hip joint is that you are able to hinge the hip joint and keep the back completely flat. So flat back, use the muscles at the back of the hip now to bring the spine back up. So you've been in a terrible accident, you're in a plaster cast from your pelvis all the way up to your head. So your spine cannot move. The only thing that's moving here is your hip joints, all right? You're creasing at the front, you're lengthening at the back, your sit bones are pointing at the wall behind you, and then you're using those to come back up. Good. If this is hard work, stay on 2 legs. If you want extra work, you balance. Now, quick thing about balance, if you're going to balance and use your glute, what I need to see is that you're pressing the floor away. So here when I'm balancing, no glute component, all right? Here when I'm balancing, lots of glute active. So stand on one leg for me. Press the floor away. I don't care if you hold on to something, that's fine. Press the floor away from you. You should feel really long on that leg. Now you find your glutes. Relax down. No glutes. Come up. Lots of glutes. Now hold that position and go back into your forward bend. So you bend it forwards. Good. So my leg is staying fairly straight. You can have a little bit of bend to it. Very nice. This time, hinge it forwards. Hold that forward hinge. And you're going to just hang out here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Coming all the way up. Shake up that glute. So show me your balance on the other leg. So when you balance here, you're going to press the floor away. So we're not here, dumped into the hip. You're pressing the floor away. Stand tall. This is for all your standing you ever do. No more of that into one hip, okay? Press the floor away, ground through the floor, as they say in yoga, which means you're pushing your foot into the floor, all right? And then hinge through the pelvis, through the hip, I should say. So completely flat back. If you want to have one hand at the front and one hand at the back of yourself, and make sure this stays the same. So you have a bit of core working to stabilize you, otherwise all the movement's coming from the hip joint. You pop your hand underneath your bum cheek, that's the area that should be working. Hinge it forwards, hold it here. Full, come all the way back up and shake it out. All right, so if you roll down towards the floor, you're gonna walk out into a downward dog position for me. Downward dog position. Step one foot between your hands. So one foot's gonna step between your hands. All right. Active pigeon. So what we're doing here is coming into external rotation and internal rotation loaded. So you're going to rotate that foot out, foot and knee, rotate it back in. All right, spiral it out, spiral it in, So it's not the pigeon pose where we're just gonna sit in it. We're being active and making the glute work through it. This time, take that knee out, hang out there and breathe. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ground the foot. Pull that back leg in so you can come up to standing. Push your pubic bone forwards and stretch through the hip flexor. So we're in the other leg now, stretching the left hip flexor. Left arm goes up towards your ear and you're bending over to the side. Good, come back up, lower the arm. Opposite arm goes up to the side, rotate back. Good, both hands down to the floor. Change legs. So left foot between the hands. Really put the foot underneath you. Now rotate the knee out to the side, external rotation. Pull it back in. The child trying to break in today. I can hear him stomping around. All right, 2 more. Rotate it out and pull it back in. Last one, rotate it out. Hold it there. Breathe for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull the knee in. Bring that back leg back slightly up to your standing lunge. Press your pubic bone forwards. Stretch up through that back hip flexor. And breathe. Excellent. Right arm up, side bend over to the left. Should increase that hip flexor stretch. Relax the arm down. Take the other arm out to the side and twist backwards. Beautiful. You have finished your happy hips. I hope they're feeling very happy. If you have questions about any of that or specific hip issues, please get in touch and I can help you navigate them. Otherwise, you can practice that. I am doing my very best to get all of these up on YouTube. Supposedly Zoom only gives you like 1 gig or something to keep your files on there. So I'm trying to switch them all over to YouTube. It's just gonna take me a couple days and then I will get them all up there for you. So all the classes I've taught so far, if you have a favorite one. I've also put a link, just because some people have been requesting, for anybody who would like to donate for the online classes. If you feel like it, it's completely optional, but will just help me keep these classes going on. Make sure I don't have to go work at the grocery store or something instead, you know, if we're going to stay in level 4 for a bit longer. So yeah, I will. We've got a shoulders class, super shoulders, on Wednesday, and we're going to try a Pilates interval training on Friday, which could be a little bit interesting. So thanks so much for coming, and I'll send you guys an email shortly with all the details of everything. Thank you very much. See you soon.